Got trapped in a childhood sweetheart B novel. The male lead chooses the new girl, even breaking up with his first love. She's stuck in unrequited love, longing for what she can't have. The novel came to life and wanted me to save her. So, I stayed by her side from 17 to 27, 10 whole years. On her 28th birthday, I happily waited for her. But then, the male lead got a second chance. When she didn't show up all night, I finally got it. Everyone hoped the lovelorn second female lead would find someone else. But no one thought that she'd only ever want him. So it's time for me to leave. The first time I met Tina was on the school rooftop. She was leaning against the railing, her long hair down, face lowered so I couldn't see her expression. The sunset light scattered like gold dust on her, casting a lonely long shadow. Next to her was a small cake, cream melting with a cherry sunken in. It was her 17th birthday. Every year, she spent her birthday with her first love, Eric. They'd sneak up to the rooftop after school, holding a cake as they watched the sunset. On her last birthday, Eric had laughed and said, "When you turn 17, we'll have cherry cake together." Tina had kept that promise, but he didn't. Because the new girl, Linda, arrived. And that's when the story officially started. This world was a young adult novel. Linda transferred and became frenemies with Eric. Their bond deepened, and Eric liked the new girl's spirited ways. He drifted from Tina, his first love. The novel became popular, but readers agreed Linda wasn't right for Eric. She was an heiress, more like a wild child. Even after being with Eric, she continued to have messy ties with other guys. This caused them to break up and make up many times. Eric even dated Tina to make Linda jealous. Linda chased Eric endlessly, and they finally got together. But Tina was stuck in her love-struck longing. Readers felt sorry for her and wanted the author to give her a happy ending. I was one of them. One day, a random poll popped up on my phone. The question: would you like to save Tina? I didn't hesitate and chose yes. After a whirlwind, I ended up in that world. A voice told me it was the world's consciousness, and out of countless voters, it picked me. Since I'm an orphan and my feelings for Tina are sincere. If I succeed, I could choose to stay and receive a nice fortune. Forget the money. It's about caring for Tina. To me, sweet and faithful Tina was miles better than Linda. Maybe getting Eric to change his mind was the ultimate way to save Tina. So I decided to matchmake them. I calmed my excitement about breaking the fourth wall. Slowly walked up to her and reached out my hand. "Hey there. I'm the new transfer student." She looked up, the fading light playing with the breeze, brushing over her dark bangs. The light and shadow sketched out the outline of this beautiful girl in my eyes. Our eyes met and that moment froze. The next day, the homeroom teacher introduced me at the podium. "This is the new transfer student, Ben." The class erupted with cheers. Everyone was so welcoming. Except for the main characters, my eyes immediately saw the different female lead. She glanced at me and turned to whisper something to Eric. A smirk played on her lips, full of mischief and pride. Eric's pale face flushed a bit. Diagonally across, Tina was staring blankly at their playful scene, her eyes dim. She slowly lowered her gaze, long eyelashes casting shadows, and hid the hint of bitterness. "Only the seat next to Tina is free, so you can sit there," the homeroom teacher said with a smile. I noticed Eric flinch slightly. He looked at me for a few seconds, a mysterious look in his eyes. My gut told me he wasn't too happy, but I was. It showed he was feeling threatened. Maybe there's a shot for my ship to sail. I headed straight to Tina. She instinctively glanced at Eric, seeing him happily chatting with Linda, as if he didn't care who sat next to her. I saw her gripping the table's edge tightly, knuckles white, yet still politely letting me sit. "Nice to meet you again, Tina." I smiled sincerely, eyes full of light. To others, it was an obvious sign of admiration. Out of the corner of my eye, Eric's gaze indeed swept over. Tina gave a slight nod, paused, and asked, "Didn't you say you were a fairy?" The heat climbed onto my face, and the smile almost slipped away. Ahem, just kidding, don't mind it. Yesterday, as a stranger, I easily got her to open up to me. I pointed at the melting cake, cheerfully asking, "Is this for a boyfriend?" She shook her head, a memory softening her cool features. "For someone I like." I was surprised, so straightforward. "Wanna tell me about it? Maybe I can help you out." Tina smirked self-mockingly. Perhaps love was too much to express, or maybe she was just bottled up too long. She actually unburdened her deepest secret. I asked her why not confessing her feelings. She said Eric always treated her as a good friend and that being honest might push him away. Frustrating. If only you just use your words. I shot her a glance full of pity. Don't worry, I'll help. Tina eyed me. Who are you? I proudly puffed out my chest. Just call me a fairy. Tina asked how I plan to help. I said all sly, I have my ways. Step 1, make Eric feel a threat. That's easy. While filling water in the corridor, I sidled up to Eric. Casually asked him about Tina's favorite things. Perfectly poised as an admirer. His smile turned a bit strained. Sure enough, he went to find Tina right after filling up his water bottle. Through the glass window, I spotted Tina's eyes gleaming like never before. The first step must have worked. Step 2. Cater to her preferences. After school, I dragged Tina to a trendy store. She picked up some ripped jeans and a leather jacket, looking rather skeptical. This isn't really me, is it? Oh, it suits you. Eric might like this style. After all, that's what Linda always wears. When Tina came out, she looked stunning. I became even more certain that Eric liked girls with this vibe. Why else would he be into Linda? Tina was totally outshining her. Her long legs and leather jacket accentuated her figure beautifully, adding a slight edge. With the saleswoman's continuous compliments, she blushed, clearly feeling awkward. I couldn't help but smile. How adorable. As we left, she bit her lip and said I should head home. It's my mom's birthday tonight, and I need to be back early. The okay I instinctively wanted to say suddenly caught in my throat. I had a sudden realization. On Tina's mom's birthday, Linda had taken Eric to a bar. That's when their first kiss happened. No wonder Eric wasn't walking home with Tina today. After confirming that Tina knew where the bar was, I grabbed her hand and sprinted. She asked where we were going. I kept my thoughts to myself thinking, obviously it's for your happiness. After all, once today passes, the main character's relationship will likely skyrocket. Tina would really have no chance afterward. Gasping for air in front of the bar, I finally stopped. Can you tell me what we're doing here now? I wiped the sweat from my forehead and pointed at the bar. She looked over, her eyelashes fluttering like she was in shock. I glanced up too and my heart skipped a beat. In the alley next to the bar, Eric was pinning Linda against the wall. They were super close, getting closer, almost kissing. I yelled out, hold on. They both froze and turned to look our way. When Eric saw Tina, his face visibly paled. He averted his eyes and took a step back. Linda smirked, dragging Eric over, and looked Tina up and down arrogantly. So you thought if you copied me, Eric would like you? I couldn't help but retort, copy? Anyone with eyes can see you're nowhere near as pretty as Tina. Linda shot me a dirty look. Who the heck are you? Eric pulled her aside. Tina and I are just friends, you're overthinking it. Linda clung to his arm triumphantly. I know how women think. But cowards who can't even confess their crush aren't worth my time. Tina ignored her provocation, firmly seizing Eric's wrist. Eric, let's go home. But Linda showed no signs of letting him go. Think he's going with you without my say-so? I frowned. This girl is seriously disrespectful. Tina shoved her to the ground, anger flaring, eyes reddening. Does he need your permission? What do you think he is? Why should he follow your orders? I pulled her back while Eric nervously helped Linda up. She dusted herself off, surprisingly smiling. Ask him if you don't believe me. Tina looked at him like a battered animal glimpsing its last chance of light. Eric, please come home. She's bad news. Eric avoided her eyes, taking a step back, his voice cold. Tina, we're just friends. My business is none of your concern. I couldn't stand to see Tina's face. She stood frozen, eyes burning red, voice trembling. Friends? You can't possibly be unaware that. Tina, enough. We'll always just be friends. Go home. He practically dragged Linda away in the opposite direction, trying to cover up. Linda glanced back, smirking provocatively. In an instant, I flipped her off. Ha, not so smug anymore. Tina stood there, her hands clenching tightly, pale and taut. Hair covering her eyes, a single tear slipped down. I panicked. Hey, maybe Eric didn't mean it. Don't take it to heart. The more I spoke, the more I felt I messed things up. Sigh, redemption plan ruined. Just hope she doesn't hate me now. Sorry. Tina turned slightly, wiping her tears, managing a small smile. You didn't do anything wrong, it's my issue. Head home so your parents don't worry. I shook my head. I can go back whenever. I don't have parents, don't worry. She paused, whispering an apology. I realized I'd said the wrong thing and waved my hands frantically. No, I don't mean it like that. I'm just saying I'm an orphan, not what I meant. The more I tried to explain, the worse it got. But in this reality, I really am an orphan. Tina cracked a smile, eyes still red-rimmed. I swallowed hard. This isn't fair. If you don't mind, why not join us for dinner? My mom likes lively gatherings. Caught off guard, I stammered, sure, yeah. It's my first time a friend invited me for dinner. Feels exciting. Her family was welcoming. It was obvious Tina grew up well cared for. No wonder she's so kind and accomplished. During dinner, Tina's mom turned to her, asking, "Where's Eric?" She hesitated, about to answer when the door flung open. "Here I am." "Hey Eric, we've been waiting for you." Eric walked in cheerfully, but froze when he saw me. With a stern tone, he asked, "What are you doing here?" His expression wasn't friendly. Perhaps others wouldn't notice, but as an orphan, I'm sensitive to people's emotions. I suddenly didn't know how to respond. If he likes Tina, it's normal he wouldn't like me. But he already turned her down flat, so what's with this attitude? Maybe he sees Tina as his property. Like, he doesn't want her himself, but he doesn't want anyone else to have her either. I feel this weird annoyance. For the first time, the main guy doesn't seem as nice as he's described in the book. Tina speaks softly. "Ben's just a friend I brought to dinner." Eric looks at her in disbelief, clearly annoyed. Tina picks up her glass, but her fingers are trembling. She forces herself not to look at him. Love is about holding back. She's choosing to step back into the friend zone. I sigh internally. Their mess isn't something I can really step into. After dinner, Tina walks me to the door, and Eric trails after us. He's a bit on edge, eyes red, voice harsh. "You like him now, don't you?" Tina's fingers twitch but then fall. She tries to appear indifferent. "You said we're just friends. You can like Linda, so why can't I like someone?" Eric's gaze is possessive. "I don't care. You can't be with him or we're done." Tina locks eyes with him, desperation mixed with a sliver of hope and plea. "I cannot be with anyone. But can you do the same with her?" Eric looks down, silent. Tina slams her eyes shut and gives a bitter laugh. "Got it." She grabs my wrist and turns to leave, not looking back. I stare, lost at her profile, the warmth of her hand seeping into mine. A voice inside tells me, Tina deserves better. So I'm done playing matchmaker for them. After that night, Tina and Eric hit a cold war. Rumors start swirling in class. They say I have a thing for Tina, so I made Eric back off. Classmates drift from me, their looks loaded. I don't mind. Being an orphan, snubs and bullying are just part of life. It's no skin off my back. But me and Tina? We get closer and closer. She brings me breakfast, I have lunch with her, walk her home after school. And Eric? His looks grow darker by the day. To him, this is proof Tina likes me. But she's just pitying me. An orphan who's also an outcast. I know it's all just sympathy. After school, I'm about to unlock my door. Then suddenly, a bunch of thugs rush out from the alley next door, led by Linda. They circle me, and Linda's grinning wickedly. You're messing with Tina, so really I owe you thanks. But Eric can't stand you, so you gotta get taught a lesson. I glare at her, cursing whatever powers that be for not giving me some kind of superpower. Wow, playing tough, huh? Linda sneers, waving her hand, and the thugs start coming closer. I glance at the rug, hiding a knife underneath it. An old habit from childhood, finally about to pay off. Just as I bend down to grab it, a thug suddenly screams in pain. I look up, pupils shrinking. It's Tina. She's swinging a brick, tangled up with them. She's just a girl, quickly getting overpowered. Linda kicks her hard, leaving Tina pale and sweating with pain. You dare to show up? Always hated your guts. Think I won't beat you to a pulp today. I pull out the knife, rushing to shield her. Bring it on then, see who drops first. I'm an orphan, got nothing to fear. They jump back a few steps, not daring to get close. Linda's furious. You just wait. And then they all bolt. I help Tina inside and grab some first aid. As I treat her head wound, she hisses, our eyes meeting. My heart skips a beat, and the cotton ball slips from my fingers. Quickly look away. Why'd you come? She pulls a basketball charm from her pocket. Fell off your bag. So I came to return it, then saw them. Living alone's risky. Be careful. I chuckle, you saw the knife, right? Plus I'm a guy. Who's gonna mess with me? Tina giggles softly, the sound small but landing heavily on my ears. True, you're great. My heart beats erratically and I can't even look at her. A strange feeling starts growing inside me, and I wish this moment could last forever. Eric's taking off to study abroad with Linda. He's dead set on going, and when his folks said no, he went on a hunger strike. They gave in. I see Tina looking so defeated for the first time. On the rooftop, she leans against the railing, silhouette graceful but so fragile. What do I have to do to make him stay? Her voice is so hoarse, it hits me hard. Now I know what heartbreak feels like. It really leaves you breathless. I walk over slowly and ask, do you really like him that much? Tina tips her head back, eyes full of pain yet without a doubt. She says yes. So I go to Eric, tell him there's nothing between me and Tina. We faked it all just hoping he'd change his mind. Tina really cares about you. Think about it. His gaze turns pitying, almost mocking. You've fallen for Tina, haven't you? My throat tightens and I can't answer. If you like her, go ahead and chase. I'm not stopping you. What's the guilt trip about? Whether she'd go out with you is another story. Knowing her, you might want to save yourself the bother. I watch his smug look and feel this sudden anger. Why doesn't he want to be with Tina? Yet steps all over her feelings like they're nothing. Like Tina's just a trophy. I stare at him, just wait and see. Ignoring his shocked expression, I turn to leave. That's when I realize that the strange feeling has a name. I like Tina. So this time I want to be selfish. I want to personally save her. So for a whole decade I've stayed by her side. The person celebrating her birthday with her each year became me. I gradually became part of her life. Tina's parents treated me like their own son. Co-workers called us the perfect duo. Friends jokingly asked when we'd get together. I could tell Tina was getting fonder of me. And this time it wasn't just sympathy. The reflection of myself in her eyes got clearer every day. We watched movies together, saw the sunrise, rode the Ferris wheel. A lot of togethers, more than friendship, yet not quite lovers. Everything felt so natural. Just a small step away from crossing that invisible line. During a get-together at the bar, I decided I'd confess. I drank too much, couldn't even walk straight. Tina supported me while I helped her with her bag as usual. Her voice soft yet slightly exasperated, with a hint of fondness. I told you to drink less, but you wouldn't listen. Fueled by alcohol, I pinned her against the wall. We were close, our breaths mingling. She trembled slightly, face flushed, voice a bit husky. Ben, what's up? I took a deep breath. Tina. Suddenly, her phone rang, shattering the moment. She glanced at the caller, her eyes flickering, fingers trembling. I stepped back, letting her answer the call privately. The plot point had finally arrived where Eric returned. Linda was flirtatious, he couldn't take it and came back, just to make Linda jealous using Tina. In the end, Tina was just a disposable tool for him. I clenched my fist. I won't let that happen this time. After the call, Tina seemed nervous. Sorry, how about I have Xiaohu take you home? I asked, is Eric back? She paused for a moment, then nodded, guilt in her eyes. He's alone at the airport. I just need to take him home. I looked at her and spoke softly, be safe. Tina sighed in relief and quickly headed to the parking lot. Right then I got a text. She'll only be mine. My heart clenched with sudden fear. A familiar voice echoed in my mind. The male lead has been reborn. The novel ends with Eric and Linda's wedding. But after the last page, real life begins. Linda did change after marriage, putting away her wild side to be a good wife. But Eric grew wary. He caught Linda flirting with her male secretary. In their clash, Linda accidentally pushed him. He stumbled into the road, a truck barreling toward him. In his last moments, Eric realized she hadn't changed, just acted better. He started yearning for Tina's goodness, full of regret. So he was reborn at this plot twist. I sat on the couch all night, overwhelmed by a deep sense of powerlessness. When the story's course changes, and the male lead finally recognizes the loyal second female lead, it's a perfect ending for most. Like the universe couldn't bear Tina's feelings to wither alone, granting her a stroke of luck. But luck has never favored me. Tina and I completed a major project together. We planned to unwind as usual. But this time Eric tagged along. He was still cheerful, unchanged by time. Ben, long time no see. You look great. Eric's smile was free of any shadow, like no bad blood ever existed. I nodded and smiled, thanks. Tina returned with our movie tickets. There are more people than usual, only 2 seats together. Without hesitation, Eric took the tickets, grinning at her. We'll sit together. The other seat has a better view in the middle for Ben. He thrust it at me, leading Tina toward the entrance. Tina glanced back at me but didn't pull away from him. The ticket lady brightened at the sight of us. It's been a while since you and your girlfriend came by. I was about to reply when Eric interrupted. They're just good friends, don't get it wrong. The lady laughed awkwardly, a blush creeping onto her face. From the corner of my eye, Tina's gaze lingered on me for a moment. Eric strolled forward with her, full of affection. For a moment I saw a glimpse of their school days. If the readers saw this, they'd be thrilled. As I took my ticket stub, the lady gave me a sympathetic look. I didn't register a thing playing on the screen. Across the way they leaned close, sharing a box of popcorn. Like a pair of inseparable lovers. Eric whispered to her now and then, her lips curving only slightly, but her focus stayed on him. Behind us, a group of teenage girls giggled with delight. I suddenly remembered on my first day transferring the scene up on the podium, how Tina watched the lead pair tease each other. I finally understood how Tina felt back then. It was like having a dull knife slowly cut at your heart, over and over. That unbearable pain became a familiar taste. After the movie, Eric still wanted more. He begged Tina to explore somewhere new. Tina suggested, how about the amusement park? Eric pouted, aren't you too old for that? She smiled softly, they have a Ferris wheel. In that instant my head snapped up. Their eyes met, and there was that familiar gentleness in hers. Is it because I like Ferris wheels? My heart skipped a beat, betraying me once more. Unrequited love is so humbling. The little things she ignores are monumental to me. But Eric was thrilled. Wow, you still remember. We used to ride the Ferris wheel a lot when we were kids. You even said you'd marry me someday. His voice started to fade. I looked down, hiding my disappointment and discomfort. The Ferris wheel slowly lifted. I sat on one side while they sat on the other. Not even half a meter apart, but it felt like an uncrossable chasm. I turned away, staring blankly out the window. Eric kept on jabbering. Tina, did you know? There's this rumor that if you kiss at the top of a Ferris wheel, you'll never be separated. Turns out he knew the tale too. Funny, that's why I liked Ferris wheels in the first place, even being a grown man. There was this big amusement park near the orphanage. I often watched the Ferris wheel spin, glued to the window for entire afternoons. Back then I dreamed of riding it with a girl I liked, kissing at the peak and never being apart. I just craved love so much, but loneliness was my only companion. Snapping out of my thoughts, the Ferris wheel was already descending. I glanced over, noticing Eric's face had soured. Our eyes met, and his were full of caution and maybe a bit of jealousy. Jealous of what? For 10 years I've just been stuck here, haven't I? 10 years ago Tina and I were friends. We still are. I couldn't help but think if I were in a romance novel the end would be tragic for sure. I glanced at Tina, who quickly averted her gaze, a mix of embarrassment and panic on her face. She awkwardly touched her nose and put her hand down, unsure. Something must have happened just now. Tina, in her high heels, suddenly twisted her ankle. Tears from the pain welled up in her eyes. Out of reflex I reached out. But Eric crouched down immediately, not taking no for an answer. Hop on, I'll carry you. Tina hesitated, glanced at me, but let him carry her. My hovering hand slowly withdrew, and I lowered my eyes filled with bitterness. Eric, with a nonchalant grin, said, I used to carry you like this all the time. What, you're not happy about it now? He abruptly straightened up, forcing Tina to put her arms around his neck. She tensed but stayed silent. As they walked ahead, Eric turned his head with a knowing smile. Seemed like he was mocking my failure. Tina seemed to realize something and turned around. Ben. I looked at her, overwhelmed with a profound tiredness. Her eyes wavered, a flash of panic, fear, evasion, and regret. Her hands instinctively loosened. In that moment, did she really see me as just a friend? Eric eyed me suspiciously. I forced a smile. You guys go on ahead. Xiao, who is nearby, he can give me a ride. Tina opened her mouth slightly. Ben. Eric interrupted. Ben might have other things to do. Let's go, Tina. Tina gave me a long look and finally said, stay safe. Back home, I stared at Tina's message. Let me know when you're home safe. I buried myself in the couch, utterly consumed by exhaustion. For the first time, I didn't want to reply. Logic tells me it's time to wake up from this dream. My mission was to bring redemption to Tina. At first, I thought that day by day, my presence would eventually lead her out of the darkness. But as time passed, I consciously ignored that mission. Like an escape, suppressing the growing fear. The mission had a deadline, but I couldn't decipher Tina's feelings for me. If she had started liking me, why wait 10 years? If she never would, then how many more decades must I wait? Inside, there's a gaping black hole pulling at my being. Eric was back for her, reborn. I couldn't deceive myself any longer. Once, I resented Tina for hesitating to express love. Now I've become her. When you love someone, you become a coward. But maybe just this once I can be brave. At work, Tina brought an elegant lunchbox. Colleagues nudged and winked at me. You guys are at the lunchbox stage already? I forced a half smile. I didn't make it. She pouted, clearly not buying it. At lunch, I mustered the nerve, heart pounding in my chest. With a shaky voice, I asked her, so do you still like Eric? She paused, her gaze darting momentarily. Meeting my serious eyes, she opened her mouth and then lowered her head in defeat. Honestly, I don't know. My brief courage dissipated, leaving me rooted to the spot. A wave of enormous helplessness engulfed me. I clenched my trembling fingers, barely managing a smile towards her. I see. Only suffocating silence remained. After work, Tina told me I didn't have to see her home today. Eric wasn't feeling well, so she needed to take him to the hospital. At the office entrance, Eric dashed to her right away, wrapped an arm around her shoulder without a thought. She glanced at me, subtly shifting away from him. Eric's expression shifted, but he kept a forced smile. Sorry, Ben, Tina's coming with me to the hospital. I shook my head. Your health is important. He seemed deflated, his smile faltering. Colleagues whispered as they passed by. They gave me looks full of sympathy and pity. I chuckled to myself. I've spent my whole life being pitied. After dinner, I went downstairs to take out the trash and ran into Linda. Ben, long time no see. I looked at her warily. Linda, what are you doing here? What do you want? She opened her hands and shrugged. What are you afraid of? I'm just a girl, I can't do anything to you. Eric won't answer my calls. I need you to help me get in touch with him. I pressed my lips together. Why should I help you? Linda let out a sarcastic laugh and stepped closer to me. Weren't you into Tina? Don't you mind seeing them together? Help me out, and when Eric and I get back together, you'll have your chance. I glared at her. She quickly changed her tone. Okay, not your chance, true love, happy? Just then, Tina burst out and shoved Linda away. What do you want with Ben? She looked cold, a fierceness in her eyes I'd never seen before. I was taken aback. This moment overlapped with that time outside the bar. She was just as mad when she saw Linda with Eric. My heart trembled uncontrollably, like she really cared about me. Linda staggered back a few steps, cursing. You again, haunting me. Where's Eric? Take me to him. Tina said coolly, forget it. Did you forget how you hurt him? Linda knew she was in the wrong, but still insisted, that's between him and me. Who are you to interfere? His girlfriend now? You think you're so much better, with Ben by your side while things remain unclear with Eric. Trying to have it both ways? Tina's fingers curled slightly, and she looked down, her eyelashes fluttering. Linda scoffed. Don't give me the just friends crap. Maybe you can fool others but not yourself. Tina looked at me slowly, her eyes complex and deep. Her lips moved like she wanted to say something. Tina. Eric's voice suddenly echoed. Tina froze, a certain impulse seemingly quieted down. She turned and Eric rushed up to hug her tightly. When I woke up at the hospital and didn't see you, I was worried. She instinctively wanted to hug him back but stopped herself and pulled away a bit. Isn't your mom around? His face showed undeniable disappointment. But Linda rushed over, grabbing his wrist anxiously. Eric, you're sick? Why didn't you tell me? Eric pulled his hand away coldly. Enough. We're over. Stop looking for me. Her eyes filled with pain and pleading. Eric, I really regret it. Give me one last chance, please. Perhaps it triggered some memories for Eric. He wasn't moved, but instead his eyes were full of hatred. Get lost, he shouted hoarsely, terrifyingly. Linda backed off a step in fear. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Eric was too emotional, veins bulging on his forehead, stumbling as if he was about to collapse. Tina quickly supported him and walked away. Linda tried to follow, but Tina's icy glance stopped her in her tracks. Tina's silhouette disappeared from view. She never looked back once. I didn't even get to ask why she showed up here. Linda lowered her gaze and smirked wryly. Didn't they say a wayward son who returns is more precious? Why won't he forgive me this time? The issue is, you never really turned back, did you? I mocked. Lock the barn after the horse is stolen, huh? The only thing consistent is that a leopard never changes its spots. She looked at me, startled. What did I ever do to you? I turned and walked away, not wanting to look at her any longer. She caught me by the arm, and I instinctively reached into my pocket, then froze. Linda jumped back melodramatically. Seriously, dude, carrying a knife? I slowly pulled my hand out, feeling a bit empty inside. Ever since elementary school, I carried something sharp, hoping to scare off bullies. But over the last 10 years, I'd forgotten this habit. Because Tina was there with her fierce protective stance. A girl who is so brave. I stopped being constantly on guard and started learning to protect her. I wanted to be someone she could rely on, but she never wanted to rely on someone like me. Linda sighed. Feels like we're in the same boat. I looked at her, surprised. Didn't you cheat on him? She was at a loss for words. You've been by Tina's side for 10 years, not for fame or money. Both of you pretending not to know the score. Calling each other friends. Who does that? I was silent for a moment. Tina and I really were just friends. It wasn't because I liked her that we became friends. We were friends first, love came later. That's why friendship always comes first. Whether or not we end up together, I'll always see her as a friend. She was the first to treat me well, providing the companionship and care I'd missed for years. All I've got for her is gratitude. Even if she loves someone else, I can't hate her for that. The good memories we made are enough. I smiled, feeling relieved. My love for her is pure, and so is my friendship. Linda was stunned for a moment, then mumbled weirdo as she walked away. A stray dog passing by got kicked by her and ferociously jumped at her. She fled, screaming. I couldn't help but laugh. I stood by the window watching the dark sky. I sent Tina a message on Instagram. Will we always be friends? Will we only ever be friends? The status showed she was typing for a long time. She said, of course. She gave me a definite answer. I'd already guessed it, but my heart couldn't help but ache. I forced a smile, but tears just kept coming. A grown man crying? Mourning a decade-long crush that went nowhere. Feeling joy for the chance at completing my mission. Blessing my friend for finally finding her redemption. It's time to head home. But honestly, I feel like I don't really have a home. The next day I quit my job. First, I visited Tina's parents. I've considered them family over the years. Then I dropped by a few good friends and handed out some handmade gifts. I wasn't just revolving around Tina these past 10 years. I made a few genuine friends, and I had a great career with fantastic leaders and coworkers. Maybe that's why I didn't blame the world for anything. Finally, I went to the orphanage I've supported. The kids there are adorable and no one gets bullied. After all that, I boarded a plane to travel around. You gotta see this vast land at least once. Watching the winding snow-capped mountains out the window, I felt a bit lost. The night Eric returned to the country, I asked World Will about Tina's redemption progress. It told me it's been stuck at 99%. I finally understood. Everyone wishes the lovesick second lead in novels would find someone else. No one ever thought she'd want no one but the lead. It seems like that 1%, like a massive chasm, might take my entire life to cross. Somehow I'm back where I started. Eric having a change of heart is Tina's greatest salvation. All I can do is step back as a friend, quietly wishing them all the best. After the trip, a month had passed. It's still fall but turning cold. This year's first snow might come early. Tina came to pick me up. She seemed a bit thinner, her outline more delicate. The cold wind flapped her coat, making a rustling sound. Seeing me, her eyes lit up. Then, noticing how little I was wearing, she frowned slightly. Why are you dressed so lightly? She started to take off her scarf for me. I subtly stepped back and smiled. Didn't expect it to turn cold so quickly. No worries, it'll be warm in the car. She paused for a moment but didn't say anything. In the car, she turned on the heater and handed me a hand warmer. I glanced around. There were more guy things in her car now. I asked, why didn't Eric come with you? Tina tapped the steering wheel with her fingers, her voice neutral. He had something to do. I smiled naturally, I see. The car got quiet after that. On the way, Tina casually asked, why'd you quit all of a sudden? I smiled, lips curving like chatting with an old friend, easy and relaxed. I needed a break. Old Zhang said I can go back anytime. She smiled too, her expression softening. Of course, there's no way old Zhang would let go of his ace. We kept chatting as if nothing had changed. After dropping me off, she was about to leave. I followed her to the elevator, speaking softly. Your birthday. She paused and looked at me, her eyes bright. Clear reflections of my face. I smiled. Your birthday is coming up. What do you want? Anything you decide. I'm not picky. The elevator arrived and she stepped in. I nodded, okay. Our eyes met. For a moment, something seemed to flicker strangely in her eyes. Then it calmed. The elevator doors slowly closed, blocking the last view. I lowered my eyes, smile fading. Honestly, I wanted to ask if we could still celebrate her birthday together. Maybe for the last time. I knew she understood. On her birthday, I prepared a 2-layer cake. Decorated my place simply with streamers. Put a big number balloon front and center. Despite the sweat, I was pleased with my handiwork. They can't call my taste too basic now. I sat by the window. It was a cloudy day, no sun. Too bad, no sunset in sight. The sky slowly turned dark as the neons came on, lighting up the city. I glanced at the cake. The cream had melted, the cherries sinking in. World will suddenly spoke up. She's not coming. Eric and Tina are on a Ferris wheel. You're waiting for nothing. I froze, my focus gone. Oh, the lovesick second lead finally got the one she loves.